Hi, my name is Ian Striedter with the Orchestra Now, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about writing for the trombone. So the trombone, like all other brass instruments, operates on the harmonic series, and we can adjust the length of our tube using our slide to give us access to different harmonic series. There are three different instruments in the trombone family. The smallest is the alto trombone, which is pitched in E flat. The next largest is the tenor trombone, which I have here, which is pitched in B flat. And then finally we have the bass trombone, which is also pitched in B flat, but has a slightly larger bore that allows for easier access to the low register. All three instruments read in C, which is really convenient, so always write for concert pitch. There is no transposition that needs to be done. So the most common trombone that most people start on when they're in 5th grade is the tenor trombone. The typical range of the tenor trombone is from the low E below the bass clef staff to the high D in the treble clef staff, with the extended range being the pedal F, the octave below the bass clef staff, to the high F on the top of the treble clef staff. There are typically two tenor trombones in the orchestra, by the way. The bass trombone, you'll typically see one of those in an orchestra. The typical range of a bass trombone is from pedal F, the octave below the bass clef staff, to the B flat in the treble clef staff. The extended range for more advanced players would be the double pedal B flat, which is 2 octaves below the bass clef staff, to the high F on the top of the treble clef staff. Alto is the least common instrument that you'll see in the orchestra. It's typically used only in period music and is something that is doubled on by tenor trombone players, so no one really specializes in alto trombone by itself. You don't typically see it used in modern composition, but its range is from the low A in the bass clef staff to the high E flat in the treble clef staff, which can be extended to the high G in the top of the treble clef staff for advanced players. The tenor and bass trombone, which I'm going to focus on for today's video, share the same basic harmonic series. So you have the harmonic series based on B flat in first position, A in second, A flat third, G fourth, G flat fifth, C, F in sixth, and E in seventh. Typically you'll have the two tenor trombone players playing higher voices than the bass trombone players, and it's typical to avoid voice crossing just as you would with good voice leading. The tenor trombone has easier access to the upper register due to its smaller mouthpiece and bore size than the bass trombone, while the bass trombone has more dexterity in the low register due to 2 additional valves. The tenor trombone typically only has 1, that allow you access to additional harmonic series options, which is very convenient in the low register. The trombone is considered to be one of the most similar instruments to the human voice, and as such was often used in requiems and masses by the likes of Bach, Mozart, and Schubert, in unison with choruses to keep them on pitch. For instance, you'd have the alto trombone doubling the altos, the tenor trombone doubling the tenors, and the bass trombone doubling the basses. Here's an example from Mozart's Requiem, the Kyrie. So Beethoven is the first to use the trombone outside of the choral setting and in a symphonic setting, and he does that with his 5th Symphony. Here's an example from the first time it's used, which is in the beginning of the 4th movement. So the trombone is also used very effectively as a soloistic instrument to emulate voice, and you'll see this perhaps most notably in Mahler's 2nd Symphony, where he uses it to emulate the singer singing O Mensch in the 5th movement. Other great examples of the trombone being used to emulate a vocal sound is in something like Russian Easter Overture or Mozart's Tuba Mirum duet with the trombone and bass voice, or the extended first movement solo in Mahler's Third Symphony that goes a little something like this. The trombone can actually be quite dexterous at times, reaching virtuosic speeds, especially through the use of multiple tonguing. But this often comes at the expense of power and loudness, so you'll typically only encounter it in soloistic music. Here's a quick example by a trumpeter named Jean-Baptiste Arban. The default on the trombone is to strive for a really pleasant, warm sound throughout the dynamic range, but retain access to sharpness and edge, mostly through articulation, only when you need it. So here's an example of a nice classic trombone sound that you might encounter in something like Bruckner's Fourth Symphony. Strauss, Berg, and Wagner come to mind, though, as composers who commonly demand a really brilliant, crisp style of playing that you can accomplish through really firm articulation. So something like Strauss's Till Eulenspiegel is a good example. Just to give you a good idea of some great examples of trombone writing, I just wanted to go through maybe some of the different styles that you'll encounter in the symphonic repertoire. So examples of great composers to look for when you're thinking about writing loud for the trombone would be things like Hindemith, Meister Mahler, any of the Bruckner symphonies, and most of the Mahler symphonies as well. Examples of great soft writing for the trombone include the beginning of the fourth movement of Schumann's Third Symphony Rhenish, or the trombone, horn, and clarinet trio in Saint-Saëns' Third Symphony. Examples of great fast writing for trombone include Mahler's Fifth Symphony, Strauss's Till Eulenspiegel, which I just played for you, and Hindemith's Symphonic Metamorphosis. A great example of slow trombone writing might include something like Wagner's Tannhäuser Overture. And then one thing that the trombone really excels in is chorale style writing. And you'll find great examples of this in Brahms's First and Fourth Symphonies, the aforementioned Schumann Third Symphony Rhenish, Mahler II, especially the fifth movement chorale, and the end of Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony. These are all great examples of chorale writing. As far as composers that push the limits of what's possible on the trombone, certainly look at Alban Berg, especially in his three pieces and Wozzeck, and Strauss in things like Also sprach Zarathustra, Till Eulenspiegel, or Frau ohne Schatten. When writing for a section of trombone players, I think it's important to aim for either really strong unisons or really dense harmonic writing that's typically in rhythmic unison. At least the framework of it is typically in rhythmic unison. I think that's some of the most effective use of trombone in the orchestra. One more thing about trombones is that they're often really good about responding to dynamics that you write on the page, especially loud dynamics. So be very careful with writing double F on long notes, because we'll take it very seriously, and you won't be able to hear much else. All right, I hope you found some of this helpful. I look forward to hearing some of your questions when we have our group call.